Hello, and happy Spinning and Weaving Week. I'm Jane Patrick with Schacht Spindle Company, and we're celebrating the crafts we love all week long. My guest today is Mary Zicafoose. She's an artist, an Ikat tapestry weaver. Her work is all over the world at embassies and museums and private collections. She gives workshops and teaches and all kinds of things, and now she's written a book that's been published. So Ikat, the sensual guide to weaving dye-resist cloth. So Mary, would you talk about the book and also just define Ikat for people who may not know what it is?
Hello, everybody. I would, this is my favorite topic in the world. I've been an Ikat weaver pretty much all my entire weaving life. And what Ikat is, it's an old ethnic resist dye technique, very similar to tie-dyeing a t-shirt, but rather than working on a piece of cloth like shibori, you literally wrap and dye each strand of fiber, and you coat it with a sort of wherever there's a resist wrap, the fiber is coated and is not dyed the same color as the background. And you put thousands and thousands and thousands of strands of cloth together. You create images and designs, and it's quite exotic. It's always, Ikat has always been the exotic cloth on the planet. And I believe because it's very time consuming, but it also has this incredibly serendipitous look to it, because the dye seeps under the wrapping in unexpected places. And so you get a very painterly, almost watercolor effect when you hadn't really planned on it. And right. So I came to Ikat because I was looking for a way to get off the grid. I had been, I had been a carpet weaver, and I wanted my work to become more painterly. And I had heard of Ikat, but it was not a mainstream word, not a mainstream technique. And I really had to dig to find the teeniest little pamphlet, 40 years ago, to show me and explain a bit about Ikat. And I just struck out on my own and started doing little teeny experiments and inserting little Ikat sections in carpets. And over the years, my courage grew. And I went from, a few wraps on a piece to now hundreds of thousands of wraps. And it's become my language. And so I was delighted when Interweave Press approached me, probably now like 3.5 or 4 years ago. And they said, would you ever consider writing a book on Ikat? And I said, I would consider that.
It's great because there isn't anything, as you say. It's fabulous. Right.
And, Lillian von Gelder wrote something, 35 years ago, and it is valuable, but it's just time for a new version of the story. Mm-hmm. And my book is just one version of a fabulous international story. And I want to really impress that to people, that I'm not the world authority on Ikat. I do, I do my own version, and I teach that in the book.
Mm-hmm. So in your book, are you teaching, because the work you do on your carpets is weft Ikat?
Yeah, in the book. Are
you teaching both, or in your book?
There's one project that is weft Ikat, and it's placemats. I mean, to teach Ikat, like to teach somebody to read, you have to start with the alphabet. So we couldn't go into like multiple languages right off the top. we had to start with the basics. So I designed a whole line of projects that grow in complexity, and each project teaches a new skill set in wrapping and dyeing. And I feel that the people who buy this book and want to learn to do Ikat are weavers. So the book does not teach you to weave. That's somebody else's job. You've got to figure out how to weave for somebody else. But I will teach you the basics of Ikat, and then you can apply that to the wonderful things you make personally. And everybody already has their own style, and they've got their own look and the things they gravitate towards. And I wanted to teach the technique, not a how-to book, how to make stuff that looks like Mary Zicafoose. No, that was not the intent. And if that's what you're looking for, You're going to have to dig pretty hard because it's not about making weft-based Ikat tapestries. It's pretty much all work-based, which is the beginning steps of Ikat. But it's fabulous and it's so much incredibly fun. I had a blast on the projects for the book because I hadn't woven clothing or wearables in 30 years.
Mm.
So here we are, so now I got this closet full of fabulous that was one of the big perks, right?
That's great. So if people want to order the book, they can order it from your website, maryzicafoose.com.
Yes,
And
they
is
can.
it true you'll autograph it for them?
I will.
That's
and I'll write anything you want me to say in it.
great. Great. So just buy the book and get her autograph. That'd be special. So you have a BFA from St. Mary's in Notre Dame, Indiana. And
yes.
then you had graduate studies at the Chicago Art Institute and in Lincoln, or University of Nebraska, and at Lincoln or Omaha?
Lincoln.
Lincoln. And then you moved to live on your husband's family farm in Mead, outside of Mead, Nebraska. So at that point, what were you thinking about? What is your art path going to be? And then you saw a loom.
Yeah. And my art path, and I think this is this is the story of the arts. I don't think it's rarely a direct path. My undergrad was in photography. My grad work was in clay, and I happened to take a weaving class. And just because it doesn't matter why I took the weaving class, but I took one. And I knowing nothing about making cloth, and I sat down at the loom, and my first throw of the shuttle, it was like a switch flipped in my brain, and I saw the work that I make today. I saw the potential of the media or the medium for me, and that was it. I was done. I left the potter's wheel, bought a loom, and at this point, my husband and I were newly married, and I was kind of snuggled up to him and said, I really would like to go to Cranbrook and get a master's in textiles. And he looked at me like, that's not going to happen. He said, you've been in art school forever. He said, if you can't figure it out at this point, he said, buy a loom and figure it out. And I don't think he thought anything would come. Nobody thought anything would come of it. And I bought a loom and figured it out. And and that has taken a lifetime, frankly. The figuring out. And I had the fact that I had so little formal education in textiles, like literally none. I took a few workshops. Peter Collingwood was, of course, for all of those years ago who were able to study with him, he was a huge influence for me in terms of technically teaching me how to make a really sound product, what that meant.
Yeah.
And after that, after I sort of had my template, then I let the artist prevail. And that's been my story ever since, is just letting the artist prevail. I know how to make a sound template. And the template, the cloth is just the vehicle for the story I want to tell as an artist. Right. And it's a strong drive, and it still is after all these years. I still feel that I have many, many stories to tell.
And that keeps you going, right? That tells you
that keeps
not knowing or discovering, right?
Right. And we all know we are working in a slow media in a world that goes so incredibly fast. And so that being said, I'm one with that. I'm pretty much one with that process. But every time I start a piece, you weave the first shot in, and you kind of go, it's April, and maybe next December this piece will be done. And I weave every day. We work every day. And that's
you're working in the super uber slow.
Yeah. Tapestry.
Method.
Ikat tapestry. Yeah. It couldn't be slower. Yeah. Maybe a big piece, some days 2 inches. Yeah.
So one thing I've noticed in your work, your early work and now, you use a lot of symbols, and your work feels very spiritual. Um, in the documentary about you, Midway, you tell a story about meeting this person in Peru.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I just got goosebumps. So I think people would like to hear that story and kind of how that meeting maybe changed how you viewed what you were doing.
Yeah. And I would say that it had a very prophetic experience. My husband and I were about to embark on a year working in South America, and we were backpacking through Peru. We were visiting a ruin called Saskatchewan, and a gentleman approached my husband in a very compelling way. I was watching them talk, and I zipped over to see what was going on. And he turned to me and he asked me if I was the weaver. And I said, well, yeah, I'm a weaver. And he proceeded to explain that the night before he called it a dream, and then he started calling it a vision. And he said, basically, I was told to come here today. And he said, as an emissary for my family who have been weaving since the time of the Inca. And he said, and in the dream, I was told it was time to pass on all the symbols my family had woven into their cloth since the time of the Inca. And I said, well, why? And he said, because we've woven the power out of these symbols. And he said, it's time for, they must change hands now. So the symbols have a shelf life, and then they must change hands. And he said, are you the weaver I'm to turn these over to? And I said, yeah, I think I am. And so we sat down, he got a stick, and he spent the rest of the day drawing in the sand all of these classic symbols and telling me the story. And he was speaking in Spanish. My husband is fluent. Thank goodness he was there. So we, we patched together this story, and these are long before the days of a cell phone. We were taking some pictures, and I was writing them furiously in my journal. And the more he spoke, I was just in awe and, kind of trembling, like I'm going, I know something big is happening here, but I really don't know what it is. And at the end of the day, the sun was setting in the jungle, and parakeets are flying and music is playing. And he stands up and he turns to me and he said, now take these symbols and weave them into the future. And he turns around, shakes my hand, and walks into the jungle. And I was stunned, And my husband turned to me and he said, so how do you weave a symbol into the future? And I just said, I have no idea. And I've told this story many times, and many of people who are listening have probably heard this when I've given other talks. But basically, I've spent my entire weaving life trying to understand how you weave a symbol into the future. And I feel that there's been some symbol, I feel that I've been successful and unsuccessful as well. But when we first came back from South America, it radically changed the nature of my work. I was doing these kind of dark, pensive pieces, carpets, and all of a sudden the pieces became tapestries. They were loaded with color, and each one was symbolically driven. And I would take a symbol, and usually I did a symbol in 13 different tapestries. And I figured by the time I beat it to death in the 13th one, maybe I had said something different. But at the beginning, I didn't say anything different. I was so nervous and self-conscious about it, artistically and ethnically so. I didn't want to be this ethnic imposter. So I was just sort of repeating all these kind of pieces that you had seen before, kind of, tweaking them a bit. And then all of a sudden I snapped out of it, and I was like, just do it. Get over it. You just tell your story. And that was the moment of liberation for me. Mm-hmm. And since that day, I don't look to the right, I don't look to the left. I don't see what's going on in art news. Whatever everybody else's story is, I just can't make it my story. I just, it really was the key to me using my intuition in my life. Yeah, and that was a gift.
Yeah, but you probably had to go through all that.
Oh, I did.
Get to that point, right?
Going through it, and it sounds easy when I talk about it. It took years, and how many warps did I put on, and how much yarn did I dye? and how, you know the story. But it was on the same token, I was thrilled by the evolution of it. And I have always been.
Yeah, that's great. So when you were in high school, your brother died. He was very young.
Yeah.
And this has had and has a profound influence on you. And one of the things I thought was interesting about that period was that you discovered that art was healing. And I think you felt that ever since and have perhaps pursued that. Recently, you finished a commission, the Hope and Healing Tapestries for the Fred and Pamela Buffett Cancer Center in
Right.
Omaha. It's a long name. And I saw bits and pieces of them. They're massive and just wonderful. And I'd like for you to talk about that now. And, especially during this period where I think we all are thinking about weaving as healing and art as healing.
So, yes, my brother died when we were in high school. I was in 9th grade. He died the week before his graduation senior year. And I don't think I realized the impact this had on me really until I became an adult. I mean, that was just what I knew, and it wasn't until much later that I saw how it changed the complete direction of my life. But the Fred and Buffalo, a huge new cancer center was built in Omaha, Nebraska, funded by the Buffett family. And they put an international call out for art. And I, like everybody in the world, applied, for one of the spots. And the first call, I didn't hear anything. And I mean, God knows we're used to rejection. I was like, of course, why would I ever, of course I didn't get it. And then I was teaching at Penland. I was at Penland School of Craft. I was doing a 2-month spring textile program there. And I got an email saying, hey, you're a finalist for the lobby of the Buffett Cancer Center. And I fell off my chair. I was like, wow, okay. And I came back after I finished the teaching at Penland. I came back to Omaha. I got the idea for what I would do immediately. And I knew it was the Healing and Hope Tapestries because I pulled that from my family's experience because you cling on to hope in the belief that there will be healing. and you so pray for miracles to happen. And I really felt that anyone sitting in the lobby of the Buffett Cancer Center, that was why they were there. They were praying for healing and so hoping that would happen. And so the idea I got was to put the words healing and hope in as many world languages as I could possibly cram into a 14-foot tall set of tapestries. And it was pretty thrilling to do this. I had never really woven text in Ikat before, and these tapestries are loaded with text. It was incredibly complex to do it. I mean, it challenged me technically, but it also thrilled me because with each word, that we wove in, every time I wove the word healing in a different language or wrapped it in Ikat, I mean, I really felt an incredible resonance with it. And the tapestries took a year. They're 5 panels, and they're 14 feet tall and in different widths. And I was finally at the very end of the last panel after weaving a year, and I'm weaving the word healing in English. I mean, I was like, I'm home. I'm there. I've got 5 more inches. We're home free. And the word healing would not fit. The Ikat would not fit. All the Ikats had gone in like butter. And it was like, what? It looked like hieroglyphics. It's like, it's supposed to say healing. It's not supposed to look like gibberish. So I took it out and, tried it again. I wove it in 7 times. And I was sweating bullets because we had a deadline. It had to be done. It had to be installed on a certain day. And I was like, I can't believe the last thing. And then all of a sudden I was standing at the loom and I went, of course, wait a minute. Why did I think healing? would be so easy. I got this kind of metaphor of it, like you keep trying all these angles. Everyone does when you're ill. You try every angle. And I said, I've got to give this last angle all the hope I can give it. And I did, and it came in perfectly. And I was
Oh,
like,
God.
okay, got the message. Healing does not come easy. And the pieces hung. But the beautiful thing about these pieces is they have really resonated within the community and within the cancer center. And I get emails. I mean, I knew it. I felt like when they were completed and when we installed them, I just went, I was the channel. I mean, I was the hands that channeled this. I mean, I can take some credit for it, but it was divinely inspired, and they have a really divine purpose there.
Yeah. Sorry.
That feels very good.
Right.
And you don't always get gigs like that, with a big mission. This is a gig with a big mission attached.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so that was a tremendous gift that the local weaver got the gig.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it just may be so gratifying that is something that, I mean, it's not just beautiful, right? It's there,
Yeah.
and people are interacting with it that need help, right? Because they're not there for fun. They're there because they are sick or someone else is ill.
Well, when the Cancer Center opened, they had all kinds of gala events. And one night we were at a dinner in the lobby, sitting at a table with a group of Chinese researchers who had flown in to the center for the gala. And they said, are you a doctor? And I said, no, I'm an artist, and I did the tapestries. And they all turned, and one of the researchers jumped up and he pointed, and he saw the words healing and hope in his language.
Oh,
and
wow.
He burst into tears at the table. And that, Kirby and I, my husband and I, looked at each other and we did a high five. We're like, that is exactly,
Wow. That's powerful.
That was powerful. Yeah. And that was my affirmation that, okay, we nailed it. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So I don't know if you remember, but I'm from Nebraska. Yes. I grew up not too far from the Platte River. And, that's the part of Nebraska that's super flat, big sky. You can see forever and ever. And it's very close, where I grew up was very close to the sandhill crane migration that's been going on for thousands and thousands of years. So growing up, my mom would take my sisters and me every spring to the Platte River. We'd be the only ones there. People just didn't even think about the sandhill cranes then. So I'm telling this now because when I was thinking about this interview, because I guess Nebraska landscape has made, it's where my emotional home is. The Platte River and the Nebraska sandhills just influenced me in profound ways. And so I was thinking, if you grew up in Missouri, is your childhood home landscape, does that influence you today? And then I was wondering, well, maybe Nebraska landscape is starting to influence you. And then I read about your Sandhill Crane project, which when I see the rendering, it's like that. It's like a place I know.
Yeah. I met my husband at a wedding in Nebraska, and I'd never been here. I was living in Chicago, and I was invited to this wedding, and my roommate dropped me off at O'Hare Airport, and I stuck my head in the car when I got out, and I said, "Where do you think Nebraska is anyway?" and that was it. I came to this wedding, and I fell in love with Nebraska. And I told my husband, "You were just, it was really Nebraska, and you were the conduit, I married you so I could have this state." And it has that strong a hold on me visually, I would say. And it is that horizon. This is a state where there is just this infinite horizon, this massive sky, and an earth that is so fertile and giving. And there's something about this whole combination that makes me mad. So I love it. I love it. I love it. And I grew up in the state of Michigan, and Michigan didn't do it to me like Nebraska does. So that's why I'm here. But I too have had the same experience with the sandhill cranes. They're actually a bird wonder of the world now. You know, now they're big time, and people fly in from all over the world to see the sandhill cranes. And I've always wanted to do a sandhill crane piece. And what I envisioned was a panorama, just as you described it, Jane, of this long stretch of river with 500,000 birds roosting on it. And the birds are like little specks, you know. And so right before COVID hit, I found a photo that was what I had been envisioning all these years. And I thought, this is the year. I'm going to do this. And it was not a commission piece. I knew it was going to be a really ambitious undertaking. I got permission from the Crane Trust in central Nebraska to use the photo one of their biologists had taken. And I said, you know, I explained the project. And we are in the middle of weaving right now a piece that my studio assistants wrapped Ikat daily for 4 months during the first months of COVID. And the piece is going to be 16 feet wide, and it's about 3 feet high. It's just this, you know, it's this sliver, this panoramic piece of woven paper, and it's all done in Ikat, dyed in indigo. And it's the river with the cranes on it. And it's got these beautiful bleeds, you know, where the indigo just seeped in beautiful ways. And the indigo, you know what indigo does, it's rich and then it's very light. And the piece is coming out like I envisioned it. And this is really a huge plug I have to give for my studio assistants. I could not do what I do with just my two hands. I mean, that happened years ago. I embark on pretty ambitious projects, and it takes more than two hands. There are not enough years in my life to complete some of these things. Mm-hmm. So I have two studio assistants, usually all the time, that work with me, and they do various and sundry parts of the process, but they do a lot of the Ikat work. And I train everybody to do. No one has done any of it before. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't live without them. You know, I couldn't keep creating without them. Right. And on the level that I do now. Yeah. They're valuable, and they're wonderful, and they're young, and they're bright, and, you know, they make dreams come true. Yeah.
Wonderful. But to me, you know, it just seems like you gotta have a lot of guts to do that project. Because you're right, it's incredibly, I just can't imagine the hours and hours and hours of creating it.
Thousands. You know, I mean, we're into this in the thousands. Just unwrapping the Ikat took like 2.5 weeks of 3 people unwrapping all day, you know, I mean, it's craziness. It's like, who would do this? But because I know the template so well, and because it's, you know, I've worked so many of the bugs out over decades of doing this, I can apply an artistic vision to it with some confidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because you would never, you know, this is not a beginner's project by any means.
So where is this piece going to hang? You know yet? I mean, I have to see it at some point.
The beautiful thing is that I received a fellowship from the Nebraska Arts Council, a visual arts artist fellowship this year, and along with 9 other artists. And the Museum of Nebraska Art in Kearney, which is crane country,
yes,
is hosting a show of the fellowship winners. Oh. And it's opening in December, and it's going to be up until the end of April, which is crane season. Right. So this is going to be the anchor. I don't know how many pieces we're all supposed to give, but I may only be showing one. And it's going to be this massive crane piece. So that's going to be its premiere. Mm-hmm. And of course, I mean, I believe, I was going to say, I'm holding my breath. It'll find a home. It will find a home. Because it was so purposeful from the get-go. I know it has a home. Mm-hmm. And I just got to get out of the way and let it happen. Yeah.
Well, I hope I can go and see it in April.
Oh, I hope so.
If we can travel.
Yeah.
In April. So I want to shift a little bit to the other things that you're doing, because you also do monoprints and you work with a group in Inner Asia to weave knotted rugs based on your designs. So how does that fit in with everything you're doing?
Well, all the good news is none of this happens. It all doesn't happen in one, the same day. I've been doing this a long time. I've been a weaver a long time. And so in a lifetime, there's lots of chapters. And so these things all have happened in different chapters. And then it's pretty easy to keep those processes going. Some years ago, I was actually in Denver. I was Convergence in Denver. I was doing a show of tapestries at a gallery. And the gallery next door was a printmaking gallery. And they approached me and they said, "We love these tapestries. Would you ever consider doing a body of prints?" And I had been thinking of that, wanting to do something like that. And they said, "If you do a body of prints, we'll give you a show." And I said,
Wow.
I said, "That's kind of a risk, isn't it?" They said, no, just do it. And so I found a printmaking studio. And just about every year I go to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I work with Michael Costello at Hand Graphics Studio. And he is my pressman.
Mm-hmm.
And he helps me technically generate a body of prints, usually that interface with the body of weavings that I'm working on. And it's been a super great thing in that it's allowed me to get a lot of stuff off my chest,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of things that, really would never have been weavings, but they're great prints, so I can come home after a week of printing in Santa Fe with 60 prints. And I mean, do I have 60 more weavings left in my life? I don't know. I couldn't do it in a week, let alone the rest of my lifetime.
It's the opposite speed of your tapestry.
Yeah, and my husband calls it sheep therapy. And I think he's right. It's the opposite. And I love it. And also the pieces, they're very simple. They have saturated color. They very much resemble the way I weave. Mm-hmm. So it's been a good thing. And also, they sell at a different price point. They go places that weavings don't go or are not welcomed yet. Mm-hmm. They served a need. They served actually a good marketing
sure. Yeah.
niche or need for me.
Great.
So that's good. So that has been a good thing. And the same with the carpets. I was on the board of Good Weave, which is a NGO that works in the carpet factories in South Central Asia, removing children from factories and putting them in schools. And I was in Nepal on a Good Weave trip, visiting the schools and the factories. And a carpet manufacturer approached me and they said, "Hey, we're familiar with your work. Have you ever thought of doing hand knotted carpets with your designs? And if you are interested, we'd like to do some prototypes with you." And so that kind of, which has been really great. And I've used it. I mean, it's something I haven't mined deeply. We did an initial series of pieces, and occasionally I get orders, and I've done some big building commissions with these pieces. But if there was like 5 more of me, maybe we would be selling more of these hand knotted carpets. And they are fabulous. I mean, they're opulent, they're thick, they're pile. They're like wonderful, but
well, you can only do so much because you're also doing volunteering in your community, right? In arts organizations and nationally, and the teaching and workshops. I mean, you have assistants, but still you're doing a lot of stuff.
I do a lot of stuff. And I'll tell you this, I'm like the worst girlfriend you could ever have because I don't do lunch. I back out. I say I'm coming and then I don't show up. I'm pretty deeply tied to working. And unfortunately in life, I don't need much sleep. I don't sleep much. Mm-hmm. And so my days begin like 4:30 in the morning, really early. I'm very regimented, I guess, or disciplined, and that was learned. I wasn't born that way. And this is, it was learned as I embraced what what my mission was, what I perceived my mission was this lifetime. And that when I perceived my mission was to do this, this, and this, I was like, okay, I better get after it. All right.
Well,
I
think that's marvelous, you know, to have such a strong drive and to know what you're about every single day when you wake up.
Yeah, I mean, I think feel that is the gift. I feel that is part of the guy in Peru. You know, it's like he sort of gave me my marching orders,
Mm-hmm.
and he also gave me permission to march to those orders. And then I was like, okay, the rest of it, you know, I can have lunch, you know, anytime. I go out to lunch once a year, you know, and that's it.
There's other things.
But I you know, I love what I do, and it feeds me, and it also, what thrills me is that it feeds other people, that I feel that that is purposeful, and it has a mission. So as long as, you know, as long as I'm, and maybe I'm kidding myself, but I don't think I am, you know, at this stage. Yeah.
So it's been great talking to you. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to add, or?
You know, one of my favorite things, I think, is talking to weavers and artists and young people, and encouraging people to walk this walk, to walk their unique walk with as much I don't know, with as many BTUs as you can possibly muster. The world, you know, the world needs us right now, like never before. They need you and Barry. I mean, they need the looms. You know, they need the information that we carry. They need, you know, the world is begging to be taught. It's begging to become a more beautiful place. And people are begging for really having the permission to embrace whatever their unique mission is. And if anything I do can encourage any of that, oh, hallelujah. So those are my words.
Wonderful, encouraging parting words.
Yeah.
Thanks for speaking with us today. And remember, you can get Mary's book at maryzicafoose.com. And if you want to see, it's a wonderful film, Midway. You can just go to her website /party and you'll get to.
Also, I think there's 2 links now. You can go to my website, and it's www.maryzicafoose.com/film. If you don't want to,
good deal.
Either one works.
Yeah. Well, it's great, and you should watch it. And you should go to her website and see. You'll be so inspired by her work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. You take care.
For having me. Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.